Welcome to Lift Your Legacy. My name is Jacob Prupp, father, husband, and rabbi. And each week we bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unlock your inner potential and create change that will impact the future. Thank you for listening, and let's get to it.
Gentlemen, I'm thrilled to have on today. This is really a treat because he does not do public appearances, so I'm very excited. His name is Joshua Volen. He's the founder and president of CIRE Partners, which is Commercial Investment Real Estate Partners. It's a large real estate company based out of San Diego, and he's such an inspiring young leader. The reason why it was so crucial for me to have him come on the podcast was that he represents, and you will hear this, the level of discipline and emotional intelligence it takes to lead a large company, and how he's gone through his process, both his entrepreneurial journey and his self-development journey, and how it fuels him as a leader is something that I feel is absolutely phenomenal and fundamental for every person to hear. And so many people can talk about what you should do or, good advice, but few people actually walk the walk that talk the talk, as someone that, is in the space. And Josh is such a transformational and inspirational leader that I begged, borrowed, and cajoled him very heavily to have him come. He's a very humble guy, to have him come out and to share on a public platform like this some of the tools that he has implemented for himself, for his company, in terms of what he's done to grow, how he's been able to stay present with himself, and to be able to adopt the growth mindset across the board, even against the backdrop of the current economic challenges. So he is a mentor for mentors and a leader for leaders, and it gives me great pleasure to have on Josh. And one of the things that I'm hoping you will see at this point is that we are extremely focused on living a better life. And one of the most important components of that is getting the direction and the one-on-one work that you need in order to live better. So I am a strong proponent of coaching. I do a lot of coaching myself, and I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, to please do what many other people have done. Reach out. Let's have a conversation. There's no obligation to you whatsoever, to see if we might be a good fit to work together. And if that might not be the case, I would be thrilled to introduce you to any of the multitude of options and networks and people that I know who could provide that help. So again, please reach out via social channels, whatever it might be. I don't think I'm too hard to find. Certainly not, I hope. And let me know how I could be of benefit to you. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to have on today Josh Volen, who is a dear friend of mine. I'm thrilled to have you. Josh is a pioneer in a lot of different areas, and hopefully we're going to go into that. But the reason that I was so excited to speak to Josh is that he has spent a lot of time working on himself, I would say as much or more than he has building his company. So there's a certain idea that goes out there that, you kind of build a big company and then see what happens. But Josh is fantastic and very interesting for me because he spent a lot of time growing in addition to the work that he does. So I wanted to start off, if we could, with a little bit of background on you, where you come from, your entrepreneurial journey to get you where you are today.
Well, thank you for having me on your amazing podcast, and happy to share. It's definitely a challenge for me to do this, so happy to share.
Pushing out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. So my entrepreneurial journey, well, I think you got to start with what was modeled for me as a kid and growing up. And so I grew up in a household where I had a mom that, an Asian mother who was, school was definitely a focus and had graduated from college. And I had a Russian, Polish, Jewish father who grew up on the streets basically and very charismatic, but didn't graduate high school. So kind of had fire and ice coming together, very introverted, very family focused, both of them very family focused. But my dad was definitely more of the sales, outgoing entrepreneur, and my mom was definitely more of the operations and absolute conservative viewpoint. So what I like to say is I got the best of both. I was very fortunate to see both sides. But I grew up around the business, in the sense my parents had a printing company. And so, after school, things like that, on the weekends, always at the business, right? At the family business to help out. I learned how to count with money, learned how to sort checks and organize those in order. At a very young age, worked in the warehouse. Hard work wasn't something that was told to us. It was definitely modeled. And the entrepreneurship and the kind of the art of the deal, art of negotiation, art of dealing with people and relationships was also modeled from my parents. So extremely grateful for that. I started my entrepreneurial journey, I would say in first grade was my first venture. I saved up money from practicing the piano. I get a nickel every time I practice a song. My mom would give me a sticker. I put a sticker up for every time I practiced the song. I would fill the page where you couldn't even see the notes anymore with the stickers because I clearly had memorized the song. So I collected all those nickels, put them together, literally run the nickels to turn them into quarters. Took all those nickels, went to the bank, got a roll of dimes. And at my school, my elementary school, which was a K through 8, really small school in Northern California, they had a pencil machine in the principal's office, and they would refill the pencil machine on Tuesday mornings or whatever day of the week it was. And so I asked to get dropped off at school early, took my roll of dimes, and it was 20 cents for a pencil. And I literally just cleared out the pencil machine and put them in my Mickey Mouse pencil box. And from there, I go down to recess, go to class, and kids come in before school. They come in at recess and they ask the front administrator, "Hey, why is the pencil machine out of order? It's supposed to have pencils today." And they go, "Well, Josh Volen bought all the pencils this morning." And so kids find me on the playground, and again, this was K through 8, so kids from 6th grade, 5th grade down to kindergarten first are coming up to me and asking to see the pencils. So they're showing the pencils, open my Mickey Mouse pencil box up, and they go, "Oh, I like this one. Can I buy this one?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And they have 20 cents. I was like, no, that one's 50 cents. Or, "No, I really like that one. That one's $1. So I can tell you that entrepreneurial spirit was definitely alive and well. The school made a rule after that you can only buy 2 pencils at a time. So I
sounds like the beginning of Amazon. That's so funny.
So, I've got plenty of stories like that, but that's the most memorable first grade type story. Going into high school and into college, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I had an interest in potentially foreign service, or to be of service is a big part of who I am. But I looked at foreign service. I looked at food industry, a lot of different things. But I never really had a job. I always was in a sales or independent contractor role. So that was definitely embedded deeply in me to be my own boss in that regard. Not that I wasn't employable. It was just more the opportunity cost of effort and energy and things like that, and really betting on myself. And so in college, I had studied abroad in Brazil for a year. I was supposed to be there for a semester. After 2 weeks, I said, "I'm not coming home." I fell in love with the country, just the amount of pride and the culture and just everything about Brazil was amazing to me. But while I was there, I realized since I had stayed a full year, I had 1 semester left to go back to college at Berkeley. And I'm sitting on the beach and going, how do I sit my butt on this beach and still earn money? And so this is when Amazon was actually a bookstore. Primarily, I had my friends coming down with full suitcases full of books. And so I created kind of my own syllabi of books, from anything from very introspective books of, who I am, why am I that way, to, business books on the other side. And so on the entrepreneurial piece of that, I looked and I found the best 3 ways. And really at the time, I really found 2 to make passive income. Was what I was looking for: durable passive income, and one was selling money, and one was real estate. I forgot about the insurance or reinsurance business at that point, but so I went into real estate post college, and been very fortunate to build a career in that, and very much a lifestyle in that through this amount of time. So that's the business side. I guess the answer on, you asked about business. I'm happy to talk about where the introspection piece comes in.
That was my next question, so take it away.
Yeah. So, so the introspective piece, again, if you go back to the modeling of my parents, um, again, this is definitely translates into how I am a parent today. Is there's the things that we say and the things that we do, and kids are definitely more paying attention more to what we, or I think everyone pays attention to really how we are, how we're acting, or what we actually do versus what we're saying, and hopefully there's not a contradiction there. And so, growing up, like I said, we were a close family in the sense that it was a very family focused, poured into myself and my sister, extended family, and so forth. But things that were said were, you need to love yourself before you can love anyone else. That was a mantra in my house from my mom. And also just, it was clear that my parents were kind of working on themselves through, they didn't have the healthiest of marriages. They ended up separating and divorcing. They fought all the time as a kid. And so I think that naturally pushed me inward to look at myself and how I played a role.
Can I stop for you on that? That's a fascinating. So you're saying that you saw them model a lot of development work. Was that before, during, after that whole difficult process of the dissolution of the marriage? And how did you sort of see that both they were, kind of in conflict, but at the same time working on each other? A more cynical approach might look at that and say, well, if you wind up still getting divorced, what's the point of working on myself?
Yeah, I would say that they worked on the marriage through counseling, and I saw that as a young child, and then also we were brought into counseling as a family, right? So starting very, I wouldn't say very young, but call it formative years though, right? Of I don't know when it started, maybe 10, 11 years old to 14, 15, like on and off, kind of this family counseling. So we were part of that process. So not that we were forced to do it or anything, it was an opportunity. And really it wasn't cynical, because what it did for me in regards to the counseling piece of it, or the therapeutic piece of that, is that it gave me a language and a tool set to express myself that couldn't be invalidated just because I was a child or a kid, right? And that's very easy to dismiss your kids, like, oh, you're a kid, you just don't know. But if you speak from your feelings and you can articulate your feelings, no one can say that your feelings are wrong because they're yours. So that was huge.
I'd like to restate that and see if I got it, because that's fantastic. A lot of times as parents, we're almost afraid to bring our kids into this sort of, formalized therapeutic environment, because there is such a stigma. It's getting less, but I'm sure it still exists in a very big way. Okay, well, if we go for therapy, there's actually a problem. Whereas, we can just scream at each other and that's not a problem. But, therapy suddenly, it's like an issue. And what I'm hearing you say is that from a very young and formative age, you were aware of, and you became comfortable with the ability to express yourself in a way that was honest and kind of without fear. And I think the point is that for a lot of people, that's extremely difficult. And just like, one of the ideas, in terms of, where do I fit? Am I an entrepreneur? Do I work in a business? And a lot of times you can sort of look back to how you were raised and sort of see what you were doing and sort of the influences in your home. And you're an amazing example of that. Also around the language of how you speak and know yourselves. Sometimes people might feel, like there's something wrong with them because they can't do that, or it's very hard for them to do that, or they haven't set that environment up. But the same thing is that, like you're saying, it's a lot of practice and a lot of tools that went into it, as opposed to just, you're born and being able to build a huge company or be able to articulate yourself and really know yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I would say there's definitely learned skills, right? There's a toolkit, people have the ability, and we have the choice to work on. I mean, look, to work on ourselves is the hardest work we can do. I mean, it's exhausting work. It's much easier just to be and to not work on ourselves. And I do it constantly, and to the point where a lot of friends even say, hey man, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of pushing yourself to that next realm, or keep looking at yourself? And I just said, well, that's kind of counterproductive, because the more I get to know myself, the more I understand, the less I understand, the more I question. um, that's part of my life journey, right? Like that's part of the journey for me. But it was definitely a learned skill in the sense of tool set. Some of the tool sets, I mean, some things are come more natural to people than others, obviously, and just being articulate. But when it comes to yourself or myself, I'll speak for myself. When it comes to myself, that's where the work really, I put a lot of work in that, because even the organizations I choose today, the people I surround myself with, the defining out of who I want to be, and forgiving myself for who I was, and potentially it's sometimes who I am at times, right? Is really important, because at the end of the day, you know, we talk about laying your head on your pillow at night, be able to sleep, looking at yourself in the mirror. I mean, all those analogies are true, right? Because we're stuck with ourselves. Like, we're in our head. The amount of conversations I have in my head a day is many more than any conversation I'm having with people. So, you know, I'm really inside my own head, and inside I'm stuck with me. And so I hopefully will love myself and enjoy my time with myself. And so some of the things I seek out, and one of the things, the best reframes of this that I saw, not a reframe, but just some of the things, even on the business development side on introspection, was, you know, joining organizations like an entrepreneurs organization or a young presidents organization or other organizations that have some type of peer group or forum setting, is that, you know, I looked at those groups as business groups initially, right? That those were, you know, networking business development groups to help grow and scale the company. And very quickly I had to reframe or relook at that, and it actually aligned that much better, because those organizations were really based on the 360 of an entrepreneur, the 360 of a person, which is you've got your business, which is one facet of who we are, an identity or whatever you want to call it. You've got your family, and then you've got your personal, yourself. And so if your business is not going well, you know, if your business is going well, but your family's out off kilter, or your business is going well and you personally are out of whack for whatever reason, health or whatever it may be, you know, the overall gets affected. And so very quickly, the reframe on that is that, you know, the more I can understand again about myself, learning about myself, focusing and becoming a better husband, father, friend, leader, right? And with these tool sets and the communication, it translated back, it naturally rolled back into the business, right? So focusing on myself, focusing on the family, focusing on my skill sets and behaviors, right? And understanding myself better, helped me as a lead. It has helped me much, much more, and as a leader exponentially, from those tools.
So I think that a few points to maybe draw out and look at a little bit with you is, if a person feels, again, exactly right, that there's a certain level of betting on yourself, which was a great, you know, expression that you used, and a certain level of grit and being able to build a large company. But then what you're saying is, really, the work becomes, and you use the word, and I don't know if you meant this, you said this is the hardest thing you're going to do, again, which, if you think about the kind of the people and the challenges that someone like yourself, that the people that you surround yourself with are dealing with on an economic level, the fact that this isn't easy stuff, and especially whatever, you know, with the world environment, but just in general, managing teams is difficult, you know, building a large business is difficult. But you're saying that the work on the self is even more difficult. I wanted to go into that, but I also wanted to ask, so you're saying that if a person is able to build with themselves and they're kind of the top dog in their company, they might look at an entrepreneur's organization or a YPO in terms of, how do I network and grow my business skills? But really what they should be looking for, and instead of, you know, again, it's that idea about, do you look at therapy as an opportunity to develop skills, or do you look at opportunity to say something's wrong with you? The way that you should look at an organization like that is to say, I need to surround myself for my self-development, not necessarily for my business development, because if myself and my family and the person is working and growing, then the only natural outcome in most cases will be that the business grows by leaps and bounds. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's counterintuitive to some people, right? If I'm focusing on my business, I should be focusing on my business. And what are you talking about personally or family? That has nothing to do with my business. But I think if you really challenge people, it has everything to do with your business, how you show up. I mean, unless you're the most amazing person at compartmentalizing things, that takes a huge energy suck and toll out of me, at least. That if things aren't right personally, if I'm feeling sick, even, I know, like just a little bit sick, I don't show up as my best self. And to know that about myself, that I'm easier, I have less patience, I'm more easily triggered. But to let my team know that, hey, I'm not feeling great, I'm not at my highest energy right now, and so my patients are going to be low. So, hey, just to give you that warning, like, but to at least know that, right? And to have studied that about myself and to own it is important on how we show up. But to be authentic and to know ourselves, I think it's empowering, it's energizing versus an energy suck. The work to work on ourselves, like I talked about, and you said it's the hardest work. I absolutely believe that, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy and effort to dig into it's the things that the unconscious biases, the things that we've buried very deep, the triggers, the vows we've made as kids, as 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and whatever we watch. And I've done this. I've done a lifeline of my life and the vows I made during those periods of time.
Tell me, I love that. Can you dig in and maybe explain the vows that you make to yourself as a child and how that impacts you later in life?
Sure. I mean, I think we learn from the things that we want to be like and the things we don't want to be like. And most of the time we learn from the things we don't want to be like, right? We make a literally conscious or unconscious vow, meaning a commitment to ourselves and this really goes back to, for me, like from my studies of this, it really goes back to the tribalistic lizard brain of protect myself so I can survive, what's going to protect me. And so they're protection mechanisms, to some degree. And
so what you're saying is, like, you grow up and you have a commitment. You don't want to be poor because you grew up amongst poverty, or you don't want to be, in a bad marriage because you saw being in a bad marriage. You say, no matter what, I'm gonna, just work until I'm not broke anymore, something like that. That's a vow you might make to yourself. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, correct. I mean, those are some of those things. Like, I'm not going to be this way. I don't want to be like my dad. And these 3 things, right? I'm not going to do that. And then you end up doing that as a dad because you have perspective, and the modeling was much greater than the discussion or the viewpoint. And you just get so mad at yourself, or you get so mad when you're around your parents. Like that was kind of also the eye opener for me is, for how articulate and how much I communicated. And there's a lot of things that came out of childhood that I was just like, wow, why am I, I'm on the phone with my mom or my dad or for whatever reason, and something they say just sets me off, and I just get so upset, and I'm about to start yelling at them, or I just want to hang up. And what's that about? And then I get off the phone and I just want to call them back and apologize because I don't even know where that came from. And so it was enough of those for me to be around them or to avoid being around them in some way. And I love my parents. Was like, is it them or is it me? Like, I want to really figure that out. And so that's.
Can I stop you? Because I want to say it out very clearly what I'm hearing and just confirm that with you, because I think that's such a phenomenal a piece. So you're saying that there's how you want to be, right? I want to show up like this. I want to do whatever. And then when you get in the experience, what you said was that a lot of times the modeling is a lot stronger than all of the ideas you wanted. So I always give the example. I read every marriage book, not every, but a lot of them before I got married. And I'm like, this is easy, basic, like what kind of an idiot has to be told, don't yell at your wife. And then I get married and I'm like, I grew up in a divorced home also. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you communicate effectively, right? By yelling. And then you're like, but then the interesting thing is when it comes down to what you want versus what you've seen growing up or sort of how you're developed, what happens when there's that tremendous schism is that on top of that comes the element of shame or frustration, which is, geez, why the hell aren't I more evolved than this kind of a thing? And so then you are behaving in a way that's out of alignment with what you want, and then you cover it over with a thick amount of shame, frustration, or desperation. Is that kind of accurate for what the experience is like?
Absolutely. I mean, right. It's that voice in our heads going, you know better. There's a rational and an emotional reaction to the situation. And as much as it's just, again, that behavior or that you just, the tool set is not there, right? It wasn't modeled, right? And so that's one of those opportunities for a rewiring and a learned behavior. And the thing I always say is who I was to protect myself, who I was is not who I am today. The skills I had before, the tools I needed before to survive are not the same tools I need today. That might not be the truth, right? Like some of the mechanisms, I guess, or the things I use to get through the day as a kid are not the same things I need to do today, and not the things I want to do today to do that. And so, and then anyway, that's just something I
that's a second piece that I think is absolutely phenomenal, which is that, and one of the main reasons why I was really excited to have you on as a guest, and you can speak this out in practical terms in your life. One of the biggest challenges that I see amongst the entrepreneur crowd that I know, that you know, is that there's a certain level, I don't want to call it a fear, but like when you look at, like we had a couple of, we had a great run, or we had a couple of great runs, but then there's this fear that something's going to hit, or in some cases now, like things have hit, and all of a sudden there's this panic, there's this terror that, someone's going to take my security blanket away, that, I can watch everything fall around, then I'll just be destitute, and we're going to be living, the streets of San Diego is not so bad, but you know what I'm saying, but this, and what I'm hearing you say is that the ability to develop enough confidence in yourself to say that I can evolve, or that ultimately I am the asset that's not going to fall apart, not my company. I have the skill set. It's not like I got lucky a few times or once and I'm going to collapse, but rather being able to disassociate yourself from the work and see that just like I had certain skill sets, which allowed me to achieve a certain level of success, I can maintain those skill sets and then bring in new skill sets as I face new challenges that come my way.
Yeah, I mean, the common thing I tell my team, and something that differentiates my company culture, is that what I tell people is that you need to be, that what we do great at as a company and individually is that we find comfort in the discomfort of growth. We find comfort in the discomfort of change. Right? So the change, the uncertainty, all those things, those are consistent and constant. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or if it's, the market moves up and down, or, whatever, a new product type, whatever it may be, a new service. It's something we might not have done before or experienced before, but having that comfort of going, hey, there's been lots of situations in my life where I haven't done this before, haven't seen it before, but we figured it out, we were okay, and really putting into terms of, I guess, a quick frame or lens of knowing that at the end of the day, what are our needs versus our wants too? Like there's a lot of things that go into that, but yeah, finding that comfort in ourselves, to trust ourselves, to have the skills to overcome whatever it is. And a big piece of that though, I think is, and for me, and something I constantly work on, is letting go of trying to control things that are not within my control. Because the more I grasp onto those is when I fight those things, when I'm trying to control how you behave, Jacob, or someone else behaves, that's when I get in a tailspin, because it's clearly I can't control that. I can control how I react to how people are acting. I can control my behaviors. I can control my spectrum, my realm there. I can frame a situation how right the best possible, but at the end of the day, there's certain things I just can't control. Right. And so that's when I would say there's the biggest friction there, and growth opportunities to constantly go back and forth on the ebb and flow of my evolution, at least.
Well, can we look at that? Because I think that with just the current challenge that we're looking at in the economy, what I'm seeing, and I'm not sure if this is the same with you, is that there are people, again, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in just about every industry. Some industries more than less. Sometimes the ones that were the most stable are now the most, up in the air. But when you're looking and you're speaking to people in your circles, how we deal with uncertainty, it doesn't really matter in a lot of ways. Again, that's why I think in a lot of ways the pandemic has been so fascinating as a study, which is it throws everyone in uncertainty, and suddenly we're all kind of in the same boat. And are you seeing that there's a real differentiator between people that are okay with this, with the lack of certainty, and the people that are actually like really freaking out? Do you see that? And how do you attribute, or what kind of advice do you give, or do you find yourself wishing that people had, if they are the kind of person that didn't have the benefit of kind of that culture that you built in your company, which is we're comfortable when things are uncomfortable, but really finding themselves like freaking out at what the future looks like?
Yeah, and to be clear, my team still freaks out. I still freak out, right? Like I guess it goes back to what I talk about of who we were is not who we are, and not who we're going to be. There's this mourning process that I'm seeing in this, and big change, right?
Mourning, M-O-U-R, not M-O-R-N.
Yeah, not mourning like good morning, but mourning and like, sadness and
Sadness
lament
in the past. Yes.
of the
Totally.
past. And
right.
and there's and talking to friends and talking to colleagues, talking to my circles, and just, it's empowering and exhausting, right? Because there's so much emotion behind it. And the main emotion that comes across first is this fear of the unknown, right? The uncertainty. And then really that fear is when I can distill it down, it turns into a sadness and this lament and this mourning of the past. I can't wait for it to be normal again. So, well, hold on a second. So are you saying everything's going to be the same how it was, right? Or is it going to be a new normal? Are we going to have a new normal? And so it's that lamenting, the mourning of the past, and to be able to grieve that and let go of certain things of that, and let go of that control of trying to get back to that, and to then embrace in the acceptance piece of the grief process, right? Of, this may be a new normal, and what are the joys of that? What are the great things about that? What are the opportunities in that, right? Of how this new normal is, and that acceptance. So, I think the same working on ourselves is the same looking at the situation we're in on the uncertainty piece of, not the quicker, because we need to experience it. We need to feel it. We don't want to compartmentalize it either, right? To truly give the feeling the name that, you and I have talked about this, to truly name the feeling, and to truly sit in, if it's sadness, sit in the sadness. Make sure you can pick yourself up out of the sadness and get out of that. And there's a lot of tools that I use to do that too, but it's moving through that continuum, and we might bounce back and forth through it. Like I've done it. I've had days where I'm a high green and days I'm red, like it's in the same day, in the same hour. Right. But it's being able to have that grit, that resilience, the mindset, the gratitude mindset, to come out of that and have acceptance and gratitude to go, hey, it's okay. I'm still me, and I think the challenging times that we're in right now, and this is not going to be the last, it's not the first, it's not the last challenging time we'll ever face. These are the times that we really get to define out and truly live out who we are, right? How we show up. And so that's been the most eye-opening for me during this period of time, is seeing people, watching people in that watching people, because like I said, when I'm feeling sick or I'm stressed, my patience goes down. I know this about myself. I'm shorter in the way I communicate. I might not be as kind or caring, and in that patience of having that resilience to sugarcoat things for someone, or frame it in the best light, or whatever it may be for others, and even for myself, right? Harder on myself in those times. Go more into perfectionist state versus forgiving myself and loving myself. And so it's very interesting that this is a hyper stressful time for people, for myself included. And it's an opportunity to work on how I show up and how I lead and how I can help others, right? And pour into that. And so but to see other people, you get to see them at their best potentially right now, and also their worst. And you and I have talked about this. For me, I lean in with a lot of compassion, and the frame and the lens I use in that is that, this is hyper stressful. I don't know what they're going through right now. So I'm leaning in with compassion, but also this is for all of us to take the mental notes too. We're not going to forget either. You get to see that. And so I see that for leaders, this is our chance to really define out who we are as leaders and as companies. And that's leaders in our families, that's leaders in our communities, that's leaders in our businesses, on our teams, whatever it may be.
Can I pitch this in a what I want to see if this resonates with you. What I'm hearing you say is that there's, it's funny because in a lot of ways we're kind of in a post religion, ironically, as a rabbi, I'm saying that we sort of move past, and we look at someone that's like totally reliant on their religion. You're like, oh, that's nice for you. So we think that we've grown beyond that. But the reality, what I'm hearing you say is, if you don't want to think about it in religious terms, think about it in terms of like the first time you saw your parents were human, or, the first time you saw that, Santa Claus isn't real, or, that this God that you thought was going to make all of your problems not get really bad, like bad things happen, and you have a hard time reconciling the world of today with the comfort of your belief structures of yesterday that doesn't allow something like this to happen. So so what we're seeing, the suffering and the pain and the mourning that we're seeing is when there's that break, that those things that I relied upon are no longer. And so that exposes a person to, I don't want to call it the randomness, but the elements. It says, I thought this couldn't happen, and now it could. And what you're saying is that the way to sort of work your way out of it, as difficult as it might be, was rather than relying on the outside, rely on the present, which is, okay, so what can I do? Who can I surround myself with? And also rely on, I guess, well, this is sort of the same thing as the present, rely on myself, not that I can accomplish anything, but rely on myself and my own confidence to be able to strategically get us to the next place. I can just show up and do the best I can do. Is that sort of what you're saying? Is that the mourning,
yeah,
but the opportunity to shift from the faith in the outside to the faith on yourself and what you can accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on that, I think it's at a time, if we all stripped ourselves down from, it's like the emperor's new clothes, right? It's like you just stripped yourself down to your skinnies, right? You're there. You took all the external things, the validation that you get in having a house or a car or business or whatever it may be. What are you left with? It's you, right? So there's the outward, but at the end of the day, it's like, if the outward is not, people try to fill ourselves up with all the outward things and accomplishments, accolades. Those are not bad things to have done those. But at the end of the day, when we lay our head down and for our final rest, whatever it may be, it's us. And so to turn it from outward distraction to inward introspection, that's the opportunity I see in this time. We have that every day. We have the choice every day to do that, right? But especially in this time, and I think that's what the uncomfort is for a lot, the discomfort is today for a lot of people, is that they have more time with themselves than they maybe want. And they're using that time and they're distracting through Netflix and Tiger King and all these different crazy things, which is fine. Like, it's coping mechanisms, right? But we're stuck with ourselves. We have a lot of time with our families, right? With our families, we're in self, quarantine with families, and we can address the issues that are there and go inward on how we play a part in those and lean into that, or, again, distraction. I think that it's to some degree, it's a forced introspection for a lot of people right now. And that's more uncomfortable than anything else.
And you're saying, especially for, well, not especially, but it potentially will show its head within the crowd of people that have been able to build financial stability for themselves, or to build a large organization, specifically because if the vows that they had made, again, going back to what you said, the vows they'd made to themselves, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be a no name anymore, I want, all that kind of stuff, they were able to invest their energy and actually see very tangible realities in what they had built. But then again, like you're saying, the shift goes back and sort of forces a person to redirect themselves. And if they haven't done, I think this is the most important thing, if they haven't done the work on themselves. And they've been able to offset that work by focusing on the job, or focusing on the team, or focusing on the family, or focusing, again, the body, or whatever it might be. And then they get brought back to this. If they, like anything else, if they haven't done this and they're not experienced in this, it definitely should be very difficult. And that's why, like you're saying, you do want to extend compassion to those kinds of people first and foremost, because again, it's hard because it's new.
Yeah. If I see this a lot, and I'm not immune to it. I mean, we all have some form of ego, right? But if the definition of who I am is what I do, right? Like in my job or whatever that is, and not who I actually am in regards to my core values and how I show up, right? That gap is where there's a lot of pain, and that's where the struggle is. And I think that's where it's coming in at identity. I mean, it happens all the time. People, I have so many friends. I'm building a business. I'm going to sell the business. They sell the business, and then they're just completely lost. Their identity was so tied to the business, or even the visioning. Like you've probably heard this before, right? The guy imagined himself, the person imagines himself on, all the success on the vision board, everything. It's this yacht. They did it. They're on the yacht. But what they forgot to vision is on the yacht with their family, or their close friends, or the people that they really wanted around them.
Or
right?
on the yacht, or on the yacht feeling good about themselves. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right?
Happy, yeah.
That I felt, so I built this big company and I feel fulfilled and I feel validated. And it's like, well, what if you build a company you don't feel that way?
Well, and speaking from direct experience, I've had I feel very grateful, feel very blessed. I've had a tremendous amount of relative success, right? In my world, relative success. And I can tell you, it is a very easy trap to get into, chase horizons, right? Where you constantly move out the goalposts, you hit a goal and it's not fulfilling. And so you set another goal, and that's the goal setting of the economic or the financial accolades. For me, I can only speak for myself, just that is not fulfilling. And so again, turning it inward, it's what are those things that bring me the most joy, right? That are lasting, not, you land a big deal, right? Great, let's move on. What's the next big deal, right? Like that doesn't last very long. For me, it doesn't last very long. It's very short term. The longer term things for me that motivate me, energize me, and push me is when I'm able to be of service, be a leader that is making impact in, let's say, my business, where I'm helping my teammates achieve, get to the next level, build and grow, and also introspectively work on themselves and grow as humans, right? Like that impact is so much more lasting. To be of service, why I'm in so many different, and hopefully I don't get signed up for more right now, but so many different organizations or nonprofits, or the service element is so fulfilling, right? To be able to help others is selfishly one of the best gifts that I get to give myself whenever I'm a part of that. And that's fulfilling. And so, it's fun to do it with others. It's fun to be part of a team to do it, but just even selfishly and by myself, even, like, I enjoy it. And that's some of that inward work of recognizing the things that, things about myself, at least, right?
I have to, okay, so this is, I just for the viewers to know, I've pushed, Josh is an unbelievably humble and private person. And so this is not coming from him. I saw this, and I'm sure many others have seen this and have been yelling and screaming at him that this is a platform he has to take, because not everyone can say that they've actually, again, this whole concept of authenticity, and it's like, you can talk about, oh, it's not about having the big business, or it's not about having the huge social media platform. And it's like, it's easy for you to talk about that if you haven't done that. But, what really matters is someone who does have that and is able to give the advice of being there. So I want to, of course, I want to be very respectful of your time and maybe I know that we've gone over already, and I apologize, but I think this is so crucial. And if I could just have you just turn into this and say specifically, a lot of times, certainly in the process of starting your business, what you just said is, you're chasing horizons. So that's very difficult to abandon, because I'm assuming so many people in the process of building their lifestyles have become successful because they are setting ever bigger financial or impact goals for themselves. And what you're saying is that's not going to provide satisfaction. And most people would probably smile and say, maybe you're right, but I still have to build my company. Or, well, I'm different and it will provide me satisfaction. And what's kind of the undercurrent there that I'm hearing, that I'm sure everyone's asking themselves in the process of their professional growth, is, if I abandon setting up the horizon chasing mentality of setting bigger and bigger, ever increasing goals, will I ever be successful? Will I ever grow a company that will sort of, go beyond my wildest imaginations? Or am I just going to basically accept or convince myself or lie to myself that I'm just happy lying under a bridge somewhere? Does that make sense? So talk to me just about that dichotomy between, how do you continue to grow financially and in terms of your company if you abandon that mentality?
So to be clear, I have not abandoned the mentality of setting goals. I'm a highly goal-oriented person. I set goals for myself. I mean, even during this time, the things I can control is my health. So I've set a lot of health goals. I'm running a ton. I'm probably, I hope, knock on wood, I don't hurt myself trying to get back to where I was in college, sprinting or something, right? So I'm very goal-oriented, and I don't think that's what I'm talking about, is not abandoning the goal setting or that. I think it's just very easy to get in that trap of measuring success. It's the simplest tool to measure being a success financially, right? And so what I'll leave people with is that success and balance are not relative to anyone else. They're not defined by anyone else. We define what success means to us. We define what balance in our lives means to us. And at different times, they may mean different things in different seasons of our life. And what I mean by that is, success of before might have been simply without introspection, all right? We're getting through the needs piece of the financial needs that we had versus the wants. Finances may have been the higher up on that success spectrum of definition. As I've moved through that spectrum and gotten through what I need, much more than what I need, right? I've got a roof over my head, food on the table, very, very lucky there for a very long time. And so I'm gotten through the needs piece. The other facets of success to find out, and the season I'm in is, you've kind of heard this, is being of service and giving back and to be a leader in my business, my family, and in my community, right? And the balance piece of that, of where I spend my energy, though, the balance, I say, it would change the most in regards to time allocation. But we have many resources. We have time, we have money, we have effort, we have a lot of things, relationships, that we put in the balance bucket, and that will shift. That can shift on a daily basis, where I have to get quarterly reports out, and I'm going to help my team, and I'm going to spend 7 hours more in business, 2 extra hours today on business. And so I don't get to do recess with my kids today. There's a shift, but again, if it's all aligning with what my why is and my purpose, what I've defined out to be, which also defines out what success means to me, then my balance of time, my resources going towards those things, I'm not in conflict. They're constantly in alignment. And so, I would say, level one, you talk about black belt. Level one and kind of the novice is defining ourselves by others and defining ourselves by the simple financial means, especially after we get through the needs piece. The black belt is we defining it out ourselves and really being anchored in a purpose and a why, aligned with what success means to us, and being okay with balance being defined by us as well, versus others saying you work too much, you spend too much time with your family, you give too much to the church or the synagogue, whatever it may be. We define that, because at the end of the day, we live with ourselves. And so I mean,
And
I'll leave
so
you with that.
that's what you're saying. So the idea is, as you build out the 360 version of yourself, if you become the person you're going to be, what you're seeing now is that you go back into your business and everything grows, but it's not growing from a place of, again, of lack, of needs, of unfulfilled vows, or whatever it might be. But as you're growing, your business will reflect that, because you are a better asset to run your team. That's the most important point that I think that, well, you've said a lot of really great stuff, but I think that that's the idea. And being able to plug into yourself, and how do I build out that self? That's that black belt thing that you're talking about. Ultimately, you will, and you've seen this in your own experience and the experience of the people that you surround yourself by. The more developed the individual, the more economically and in terms of impact and all that kind of thing, just the better off the organization, the team is. Is that accurate? That's what you said?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's the mindset of the fix versus the abundance or the growth mindset. The other thing is vulnerability, right? Brene Brown said it. Lots of people said it in a lot of different ways, but vulnerability is courage. And you combine that of not knowing and okay, not knowing everything, but a love of learning, and you apply that to yourself. That's the hard work. But again, at the end of the day, it's fulfilling. It absolutely is, because when I catch myself in a trigger in the moment, and I'm able to back that up and go, hold on a second, this has nothing to do with them. This is me right now. And I'm reacting. This is what's going on. That feels really good, because again, it reminds myself how much control I do have of something I can't control, which is how I react and my choices of how I react, which is a gift, religious or not. That's a gift from God, to be able to, the right to choose. Right. And so I'm very grateful to have the time, energy, and resources to focus on myself. And I'm not saying everyone has there's a right time for that. People have to figure out for themselves on that, but I can tell you it's definitely worth the journey.
Amazing. Josh, I know that you are a very private individual, but if anyone wanted to follow up with you, see where you are, see the kind of the work that you do, is there a platform for that? You're like, yeah,
a challenge.
Yeah, right? We're working on it.
There's
LinkedIn.
not a platform for that. I mean, look, yeah, ping me on LinkedIn. Right. I'll give you my personal email. It's my first and last name. So Joshua Volen, V as in Victor, OLEN @gmail.com.
Beautiful.
It's less cluttered than my business email. So feel free to reach out. If I can be of service, if I can share anything with you, I'm happy to give you any tools, resources I have, including Jacob. Is a great resource I lean on. So thank you. From
the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the time so much, the wisdom, everything. It's really phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You guys have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Another inspiring episode. If you enjoyed this, I ask you to please share this with your friends and to like us over on Rabbi Rupp through Facebook or on YouTube. And the more that we're able to get these important messages out, the more that we can really make an impact in the world. So I encourage you, please, to stay tuned. We have a ton of amazing speakers coming up, and also to tell your friends about it. Thank you very much.